I called it out in last week's episode, man. We're not just going down the list normally. We're not saying, okay, here are prospects 1, 2, 3, 4 in that order. Today's episode of Why I Want, in Season 7, we're going over to a guy whom Vancouver Canucks fans have been talking about, and for a very particular reason. We're getting this out of the way for now in the form of a Why I Want, because when it comes to top prospect in the NHL draft, Lucas Pettersson, there very well may be a Vancouver Canucks story in the pipeline. Now, all memes aside, I know I'm saying it in the title, I know I'm saying it in the thumbnail, whatever, everybody's going to talk about it in the comment section below. Future Canuck, oh, Patrik Allvin should do it for the memes. Be careful what you wish for, people, because the last time we made an entire conversation about, oh, the Canucks should draft this guy because it would be funny, it actually happened. And if you know what I'm referring to, we're talking about the Elias Pettersson draft pick from the 2022 NHL entry draft. And I made 2 videos about this guy. Firstly, it was the Why I Want. Secondly, it was the reaction when he actually got drafted. And it was a crazy time because we didn't actually expect Vancouver to pull this off. And so, with today's conversation of Lucas Pettersson, there's an even bigger reason why the Vancouver Canucks should maybe think about drafting this guy. And the funny part is, knowing Patrik Allvin and his tendency to draft Swedish players, it may not even be all too crazy. So, who is Lucas Pettersson and why is he noteworthy in this year's draft? Well, Lucas Pettersson is a 17-year-old center, 5'11", 170 left-handed guy who is signed in Sweden for MoDo's Hockey Club till 26-27. Now, the very interesting part about Pettersson's profile other than his name is the fact that he's from Örnsköldsvik, Sweden. And if you're a Vancouver Canucks diehard, you understand why Örnsköldsvik is a fun and relevant discussion point in this conversation. This small town, 24 square kilometers in Sweden, has a population of only 56,000 people. But of the small sample of people that exist in this town comes an even smaller sample of 14 NHL players, only a few of whom have actually exhibited long-term success. Of the names of NHL players from Örnsköldsvik, Sweden, you have yourselves some NHL legends like Peter Forsberg and Victor Hedman. But on top of these guys, you have yourselves even more star power at the top of Örnsköldsvik's hockey production rate. Henrik Sedin, Daniel Sedin, Marcus Naslund, all were taken from this small town. And as Vancouver Canucks fans, we recognize that, hey, Naslund and the Sedins were each franchise-caliber players for this squad. And they all came from this very small town in Sweden. Would it not be so poetic for the Vancouver Canucks to consider a prospect who is from this town once again, whose last name happens to be Pettersson? Now, if you think I'm pulling this out of my hat just for the memes, you know, the craps and giggles, take a look at this. Lucas Pettersson actually is an NHL projectable prospect. His consolidated ranking is 55th overall. He's ranked as a first-round talent, 31st overall by TSN and Bob McKenzie. The Hockey News and Tony Ferrari have him at number 29, Craig Button has him at 42, and he is ranked as the 10th best skater for European skaters by NHL Central Scouting. This season, Lucas Pettersson has 43 points in 36 MoDo Hockey J20 games. 20 goals, 23 assists, he is a plus 20, and his production was so good as a 17-year-old in the Junior 20 League that he was called up to play in the SHL, where he had 4 games for the regular MoDo club. Did I mention, by the way, that the Sedins, you know, MoDo, there's that connection there as well? Not to mention the fact that you actually have good scouting reports and material on this guy available on the internet. The Elite Prospects Draft Guide goes out there and says this: Lucas Pettersson is an offensively gifted center who can set up his teammates in scoring positions from anywhere on the rink. He possesses a good wrist shot, which he uses with accuracy from the slot for good scoring chances. Overall, Pettersson is a mature two-way center which the team can rely on in any game situation. Draft in Europe said this about Pettersson, that he's a competitive skater. He works on both sides of the puck, positions himself well to get possession, and has the ability to set up line mates. This is a two-way center playmaker, and when I think about that profile, I think, you know, that's a really nice sort of label to throw onto a guy. He's projected towards the end of the first round. Maybe he could slip into the second. He's got two-way capability. He's a good playmaker. He's already good enough to play in the SHL. That kind of reminds me, oddly in a way, like a profile similar to Teddy Bluger, for example. A guy who just plays solid two-way positional hockey, plays well in his own zone, and can make some very nice passes once in a while to set up a Connor Garland or a Dakota Joshua anywhere in the offensive zone. We also had ourselves even more breakdowns of Lucas Pettersson. This is an article published on December 7th, 2023 on recruitscouting.com by Moises Vindas, breaking down the 2024 draft talent in Sweden. Link is going to be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this, but there is a little bit on Lucas Pettersson. He's originally from Örnsköldsvik, one of Europe's most important hubs for creating successful hockey players. He has spent essentially his entire career in MoDo's development system and has already made his debut with MoDo in the SHL. He's a player who loves to play in the slot and is capable of creating a lot of danger for his teammates. His great leadership, hard work, and skills place him today as one of the top talents eligible for the 2024 draft from Sweden. There is indeed a video attached of a Pettersson clip on Twitter. Pettersson is one of the most attractive profiles of Swedish players available for the draft. He's a strong two-way center who dominates the slot, creates danger, and engages well in defense, transition, and offense. And the video that is attached here is a pretty good one. It's a highlight clip, about 15 seconds long, of Lucas Pettersson in his own zone, just tracking the guy with the puck, making a good read, stealing it, and then coming down on the offensive rush. Comes right in with a shot, and he scores. Just a brilliant goal. This is a really nice player, and honestly, somebody who we're talking about not just because of the memes, but because he actually does have a projectable NHL profile. We talk about this all the time, but when it comes to guys who are actually playing in their top pro men's leagues at young ages, that is one of the best signs of on-ice maturity and poise that you could get out of any prospect available in the draft. Not because they're super skilled and they're going to dominate the league. I mean, the guy has 0 points in 4 SHL games, for crying out loud. But just acknowledging that they feel he's ready to play for MoDo's regular team, to say that this guy gives MoDo a better chance to win than any of the other players they have in their junior system because, you know, the J20 league is a league for players under the age of 20. The fact that Lucas Pettersson is 17 and he leapfrogged those guys is a very good sign. Not to mention all the intangibles that he has, not to say that this is going to be a player who projects as a top-line center anytime soon, but if he could at the very least translate those skills of effective playmaking, solid two-way play, on-ice leadership, and poise, then you could have yourselves a guy taken towards the end of the first round that could very well be a solid third, maybe a lower-tier second-line center. Now, the numbers, if you wanted to talk about that, I mean, there is offensive potential here. Maybe not like the most potential in the world, but if you go over to the J20 Super Elite and you sort by the past few years' worth of play, go over to under 18 skaters and you sort by points per game, Lucas Pettersson is barely beating out some other guys that you might recognize. You've got William Eklund, who produced the rate that he did in his draft -1 year. You have Fabian Lysell, Emil Benstrom, Dominic Bach. There are a few guys here whose names are pretty notable for Junior 20 SHL production and eventual NHL success. The guys who outproduced Lucas Pettersson, though, are all like mainstay guys. If you go over to like the top of this list, you'll see guys with much higher points per game numbers, and that's not really too much of a surprise. Even other players that the Canucks have, like Elias Lindholm and Lekaramaki and Rasmus Asplund, Lucas Raymond, these guys all produced way more than the Lucas Pettersson we're looking at today. But at the end of the day, I mean, the guy's not ranked to go anywhere near the top, like a William Eklund did, or like an Elias Lindholm did. He's supposed to be going in the end of the first round, maybe middle of the second round, if everything goes right. So, if the Vancouver Canucks have themselves a pick in the third round, for example, let's say Lucas Pettersson slips, let's say he doesn't go, or let's say the Vancouver Canucks pull off some kind of a trade to get a second round pick. Who really knows? I personally would like to focus more so on the now and try to go for a playoff run, so maybe second round picks are not the most desirable thing to have right now. But if the Canucks do have an opportunity to take a guy from MoDo, to take a guy from Örnsköldsvik, to take a guy who could be mentored by Henrik and Daniel Sedin, and to take a guy whose last name happens to be Pettersson, who could maybe potentially round out as a Teddy Bluger light type of player, I honestly think that would be a great idea. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as to whether or not Lucas Pettersson is a worthwhile prospect to think about in a drafting scenario. If you're a fan of a team that's not Vancouver, do you want your team to draft this guy? Let me know in the comments as well, who do you think we should make the next Why I Want video about? These come out every Sunday at 10 a.m. PST. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.